Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I get the feeling that it must be quite difficult to be a television presenter, and because there's a lot of the stuff that goes on in the background and we only see them when the cameras go live. So I'm hoping the cameras are live and I'm hoping that everybody can see us. Thank you for joining us today. It's really, really great to be able to share some insight with you. We've got some exciting guests on the webinar with me. And I'm hoping that you will see some value in the time that we spend with you today. We certainly are dealing with a lot of complexity in the business world today. We seem to have got through the worst of what COVID threw at us and just gotten used to dealing with hybrid working scenarios. Now we're having to very much deal with erratic power supply. And that has also thrown us into a bit of a spin today. So we've got people in different places from where they were hoping to be this morning because we're needing to take care of some erratic power supply. But we really appreciate your time today, and we hope that we can share some interesting insights with you. Could you perhaps go to that first slide that we had spoken about? There we go. Thank you. And if you just move on to the next slide, Kanya, I think that'll be an interesting introduction. So perhaps to people who don't know us that well and to people who aren't what we would call our customers at the moment, Numata is a managed IT services organization. We spend our days and nights in the background looking after our customers' IT infrastructure and essentially keeping that IT infrastructure running, keeping the lights on, so to speak, so that our customers can getting on with their business. We want our success is in keeping our customers' IT environments stable and up and running so that they can do what they do best. The area that we're really going to focus on today, if you look at this diagram, we see 6 pillars of our business. And those pillars of our business cover what we do for our customers. But essentially, the area that we're focusing on today is the first of those pillars on the left, which is the IT strategy, advisory, and risk management pillar. And that's really where we get a deep understanding of our customers' environment. We get an understanding of our customers' objectives and strategy, and we bring the best of our people and the knowledge of our people to bear in putting together solutions to provide our customers with insights on their IT strategy, on how they can drive their IT strategy to enable their business strategy. So the focus area today is really on that one pillar that we have, that we have a significant investment and have made a significant investment in becoming a Dell Platinum partner recently, and brought some specialist people on board because we see the value in being able to assess customers' environments, design and craft solutions that address those environments from an IT infrastructure point of view. And our partnership with Dell is a key partnership in terms of our strategy as a business, and working closely with the team at Dell to bring the best of what Dell has to offer our customers. And we're very excited today to be joined by one of the people that we work and interact with on an ongoing basis at Dell, and that's Jennifer Hong, who's one of the solutions engineers at Dell. And Jennifer will be sharing some information with us today, which is a key part of what today is about. And Jennifer, we were speaking earlier, and we agreed that servers are the bedrock of any enterprise solutions, or the foundation of any enterprise solution, certainly in our experience. And we understand that Dell have recently launched their 15th generation servers, and it'd be really great today if you could share some insight on Dell's latest 15th generation servers with us.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Of course, I don't mind at all. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me the time with your customers or everyone on the call. I'd like to take one step back before I do answer the question. At Dell Technologies, we saw operations, cloud, and workloads as 3 key areas where IT needs to modernize. And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would actually resonate with a lot of what I'm going to speak about. First, there's operations, so it's delivering resources on demand. Any kind of delays can potentially make or break a project a critical project, and impact the entire value chain. And of course, the infrastructure must also stay up and running. So customers must find ways to automate the provisioning and the delivery process, but also optimize the operational efficiency. Now, that's a major reason that many IT organizations have turned to look at public cloud so that they can rapidly and easily deploy on demand services with limitless scale. But we know that islands of clouds, as in maybe Amazon or Azure or or Google Cloud, it's very difficult to manage. And managing them separately, it's actually inefficient and probably adds more complexity to IT. In fact, one of the IDC stats, IDC stats that half of the organizations worldwide has an executive mandate to support hybrid cloud environments. That means that they see value in both data centers and public cloud, and they want to pull their operations together into a common hybrid cloud operating experience that they can run both modern and traditional applications. And then there's finally workloads. So getting the most value from new business process, transactional and analytical workloads requires new level of performance, scalability, resilience, and efficiency that only a modern infrastructure can provide. So first, we need to optimize IT operations. Automation of operations is necessary as data center equipment's capacity and complexities grow. The ease and speed at which customers provision and deliver and manage resources can make or break the projects, as I mentioned before. So those are things. And then on top of it, there's cloud. Everyone sees value in public cloud as a resource. Most organizations use more than one or have a more than one strategy as part of the cloud strategy. So it's to drive more value from cloud. IT needs a way to embrace it as not a destination, but as an operating model across a hybrid environment. So that will require common virtualized and containerized infrastructure and common operating experience. Okay. As you guys know, COVID, if we look back 2 years, it was the catalyst and probably the need for change and innovation. It was the year that forced adaptation. So 2020 created new challenges that pushed us to be more creative. So as a high level, we find that there are two overarching desired infrastructure outcomes. The first one is a modernized data center based on technology that can support workloads for the digital transformation, and also the automation enabling operations to focus on consumption versus building and maintaining infrastructure. The second part is a hybrid cloud acceleration based on consistent virtualized environments and also consistent cloud operating models. So infrastructure as a service across clouds and data centers. So with integrated system infrastructure for on-prem cloud operating model, you can achieve both. So we at Dell Technologies, we launched a 15G server at the 15G server in 2020 to 2021. First with the third generation AMD EPYC processors, and then with Intel on their third generation Xeon Ice Lake processors. So from fine-tuning to new workload-focused platforms, our PowerEdge service allows you to take advantage of the latest technology advances like infrastructure automation through to systems and software designs with security as a priority. So our innovation includes, as you can see on the screen, adaptive compute to autonomous compute infrastructure to proactive resilience. So let's go into it a bit more. So we've got on the left-hand side, the adaptive compute. Over here, we look at the design of the server itself and how the heating has, because we all have challenges with heat dissipation within a server or a compute system. So one of the things we looked at was, it's called Dell multi-vector cooling. Its advanced thermal design streamlines the airflow pathway within the server, so directing the appropriate volume of air to where it's needed inside the chassis. Then we have direct liquid cooling. So it's extending liquid cooling to more PowerEdge servers. It uses exceptional heat removal capability of liquid to absorb and remove the heat. So with liquid cooling, we're always worried, what if it like leaks? So there is a leak sense. So if leak occurs, there are leak sensors which will log an event in the IDRAC system. The detection will be configured to take action, such as raise an alert or power off a server. And then the thermal design, the engineering team tailored a new thermal solution and designed to address the dense heat producing components. So we know sometimes that it could be memory that could be causing the heat producing components on there. So they've looked at how they can actually dissipate the heat within the server itself. And then there was also one of the things we also did look at, because as businesses grow and data grow, some applications need a bit more performance within the data center. So we focus on acceleration, so support for the most complete stack of GPUs in the PowerEdge portfolio, maximum performance for the entire spectrum of high performance computing, AI, machine learning, and database analytics, as well as VDR workloads. Okay, then we move on to the middle part, which is the autonomous computer infrastructure. So we have within the PowerEdge servers, we have something called an open manage service, which is the heart of how do we call it? It's like the secret sauce within the compute systems. It collects the information from all the systems involved, as well as integrated with the network and storage components, so to provide customers with a holistic picture of the entire infrastructure. It's an intelligent system that works together and independently, so it enables rapid digital transformation and productivity. So as your business evolves, as in the customers, managing the infrastructure becomes more challenging, including siloed systems and data. So Dell Technologies delivers server technology that discovers and enables other systems, makes recommendations, and communicates effectively based on guidelines. So it allows rapid platform enablement, quickly getting the system up and running with automated server and OS deployments. So you get a comprehensive review of the system data analytics through IDRAC and predictive analytics capability with our Cloud IQ analytics. And you can also scale without disruption. So it manages up to around about 8,000 servers, which is not just obviously servers, but HCI and vendor systems as well. So let's look at proactive resilience. And we have 4 stages that we look at from a proactive resilience. What do we mean by that? So we look at the first part is design or develop, sourcing of the hardware or the components, manufacturing, and delivering it to our customers at the end of it. So design, if we look at design, we have data at rest protection, there's secure development life cycle, there's remote full power cycle, there's silicone root of trust, firmware protections. So there's quite a bit with regards to the design of the system itself. Then how did we source all the different components? We have Dell supplier to make it security. We made sure it was security standards, approved vendor lists, joint collaboration on security, supplier personnel security. We looked at that. And then from a manufacturing point of view, we have system function testing, third-party security audits. So like, for example, SAP HANA, SAP actually does audits on our systems as well, so that it is verified systems for their applications, same as VMware. We work together with our different third parties to make sure that all our servers are verified and certified for the different applications within those applications. Okay, and then delivering to our customers, which is the anti-tamper protection in the packaging, container seal and tracking, and then trusted logistic partners. So Paul, in summary, together with the 3rd generation AMD and Intel processors, we offer our 15G servers, which is designed with adaptive compute, autonomous compute infrastructure, and proactive design to handle all different types of workloads.
It's really interesting, Jen, and thanks for that overview. I mean, I think the thing that struck me is a sense of comfort and confidence that there's a team of people, for example, at Dell that are looking at how to cool your products effectively. Because we all know that, we get it from our end users who, the performance needle is moving up. The performance needle results in heat. Heat results in negative performance. And it's amazing to think that at the level of making sure that the infrastructure stays cool, that is such an important thing for Dell as the manufacturer, as the foundation of the solution to be focused on. And similarly, the RDRAC capabilities in terms of being able to get a single point of contact view across the infrastructure is important. And the third note that I made there was around the resilience. And it's, so much is involved in terms of making sure that the systems at the end of the day have the resilience. And often these are things that happen behind the scenes, and it's amazing to hear that there's that level of detail that actually goes into this. You spoke about workloads, Jen, and could you maybe help us to understand what workloads we would look at, and what are workloads? How would a customer understand workloads and how these run on the PowerEdge servers?
Sure, no problems. Can we move to the next screen? The next one after that, thank you. So our range of servers are designed to handle all workloads, as I mentioned before, from mainstream workloads to modular workloads. And these are designed for business applications or analytics or AI, machine learning, even containers, as well as VDI. So let's look at the portfolio. The portfolio can handle up to 40 cores and 8 terabytes on Intel processors, 64 cores on AMD processors, and up to 4 terabytes of memory. So if we look at the screen that you guys are, or the slide that you're looking at, the models that have more than 3 numbers on it, so like the 7515s and the 7525, those are AMD servers, and the ones with 3 numbers are the Intel servers that you see on the screen. Some of our PowerEdge servers can handle around about 24 times 2.5 inch drives, giving the customers the requirement for their capacity, or even allowing them to scale when they need to. So if we start on the left-hand side on our rack servers, it's the ones I'm going to focus on today. You'll see that the R450s there, those are value and density focused. They're built for general purpose. The R550s are versatile, they're value optimized, virtualization ready, and also built for general purpose. Both of these systems are small IT infrastructure, light VMs, and small business specific workloads. Then we move on to, let's say, if we go to the middle part of it, so the 75, let's actually move on to, the 750s and the 7525, 650s, and 6525s. These are built for like your database, your analytics, for your database specific decision support system workloads. So they can handle NVMe, large memory capacity. We use these specifically for, let's say, our HCI solutions, which include like VMware, Azure Stack HCI, hybrid cloud platforms. These are also used for VCF on VxRail, which is extending on-prem to the cloud. Virtual desktop infrastructure, your VDI. So for that, there's balanced core counts, GPUs to support maximum number of end users, mixed workload standardization for data centers that require standardized hardware for several diverse workloads. So these provide the highest performance capacity, configuration, and flexibility in the most dense form factor. Now, if we look at the 750XS, that's right in the middle, the 650XS, and then the 7515 and the 6515, those are your AMD single socket processors. These are for virtualization. Cloud, it's a perfect choice for medium business exploring the advantage of software virtualization, medium VMs or virtual machines. They're more adaptable option to right-size your virtual instances needed to process workloads as they fluctuate in your business. So Paul, to answer your question or to maybe summarize, our service can handle any workload from business applications to VDI, virtualization, analytics. It can do on-prem to on-prem solutions to extend to the cloud if the customer has a cloud strategy as well. So that's the different workloads you can look at.
That's great, Jen. Thanks. And I mean, looking at the portfolio, I've always been struck in all the years that I've been working with Dell that there's a really broad portfolio of products, but that portfolio is so well thought out and well put together. And I guess this, referring back to what you said earlier, the secret sauce that we have on our side as Numata and with our team of solutions architects is really to understand that portfolio and to be able to map what the customer requirement is, what the workload requirement is, by looking at collecting data and assessing the environment, and then choosing the most fit for purpose server out of the range to map with that portfolio. So Jen, thanks so much for that overview. Often, when we look at a portfolio of products, there's a huge amount of detail in terms of the specific CPUs and RAM configuration and feeds and speeds, and that confuses it a bit. But I think looking at it from a workload point of view really helps us to understand that at the end of the day, these servers are really there to present something to a customer, to present a service to the customer. And the background, what happens in the background in terms of the actual physical hardware and the feeds and speeds is perhaps less important than what the workload is that the customer is going to be presenting. So thanks again for that overview. I want to take this opportunity to introduce somebody that I've worked with for a very long time, and just to take on the point of assessing the customer's environment. Kent joined our team earlier this year and is our Dell EMC solutions architect. Kent, you've had extensive background in working on-premise and private cloud managed services for customers in the past over the last 10 years. What I'd really like, and where I think that you could add some value today, is if you could share and paint a picture of that journey and give us some insights into the things that you went through over the last 10 years as you've looked at on-premise infrastructure solutions and hybrid cloud type solutions.
No, thanks, Paul. We have worked a long time together. For sure, the journey has been very interesting, I must say. It wasn't so long ago, you didn't have public cloud available in South Africa. The Azure data centers, I think they launched in 2019. And I think what's really important at the end of the day is for us to work with our customers and understand their businesses and understand their requirements. And then, basically, look at the different options and make sure that we give them the best advice, where the public cloud is the right option for the workload, where the on-premise will do the job. And funny enough, I mean, this year we've engaged with a lot of customers that have come to that point now where the infrastructure is now aged, and they basically now saying to us, okay, well, do we replace this infrastructure, or do we go to the public cloud or private cloud even? Not even just public cloud. So we did that, and it's been quite interesting for me as well, because I would have thought that maybe in some cases the public cloud would be cheaper for them to utilize, but it actually hasn't turned out that way. Based on the workloads that these customers are running, and based on what we can give them from Dell's portfolio and capabilities, it's actually ended up that it's actually way more costly to run it in a public cloud than it is on premise. Now, I'm not saying that is 100% of the time, but I'm just saying for these customers that we've engaged with, it definitely didn't make sense to go to the cloud, because if you look at the cost and what they were getting out of it, it didn't make sense. They could do everything that they needed with that portfolio from Dell. And the fact is, we don't just slap something together, right? The audience has seen what Jennifer's discussed, and the power behind the Dell capabilities and portfolios and the servers and the storage. And what we do is, if we don't have a good view of the customer's environment or understand his business, we go in and we use tools like Live Optics. And if you look at the slide, there's a logo there in the bottom left-hand corner. And what it really helps us to do is to get a real thorough understanding of the customer's environment, the applications, and yes, detailed performance, IOPS, read-write ratios, capacities, all these fancy things. And what's great about this tool is that we can plug it into other Dell tools, and depending on what Dell's solution is from, let's say, a storage perspective, can give us some recommendations, and we can work from there, either, backwards, to make it cheaper, or, forwards to, meet greater demand or whatever it might be. So another great feature of the tool is that we can actually see what workloads we would need in public cloud environments as well. So we can do an analysis and a comparison. But just to take a step back from my side, years ago when I did design these solutions, like I say, before public cloud, designing the solutions, putting them together, and then, in fact, managing a lot of the solutions as well on behalf of the customer, like we do now as Numata. The customer would then come to us and say, well, look, you're doing a great job, and that's fantastic, but we need disaster recovery. And that opened up an opportunity for me to establish a private cloud environment at Terraco. And if you look at the top right, it's a tier 4 data center. In fact, Azure is hosting there, AWS is hosting there. We built out a platform, and it's all run on Dell EMC equipment, of course. It was built on top of VMware. And it was great for the customer because he's saying, well, that's exactly what I need. I don't want to have to go and buy servers and storage and VMware licensing and have someone implement this and even manage it. He only needed the resources that he required for disaster recovery. And so we grew out that platform. And then, eventually you get to the point where the customer, during that process, we're failing over servers. We're testing that those servers meet certain RPOs and RTOs. And the customer automatically sees, sure, but I can actually run, these workloads in this environment. One or two customers came to us and said, Kent, we need to have business continuity, not just DL. We want to be able to fail over and run these workloads, even if our production environment is running. It might be an application failure, for example. So you'll see there was tools like Veeam and Zerto, and we used tools like Zerto or solutions like Zerto because it was continuous protection, it was ease of failover, it was ease of failback. And that's something that a lot of people forget. It's one thing replicating into the cloud. They've got a replication strategy, or replicating into another data center. But how easy is it to fail back? And can you utilize these solutions in an active scenario? So, these things started to become a reality for a lot of the customers that I worked with. We did layer 2 connectivity, for example, straight into the data centers, like running a cable from your production data center to your DO data center. And when they failed over, those workloads basically ran as if they were on the local network. And my point that I'm trying to make is it made it a reality for customers to realize they didn't have to run everything on premise, right? They could run it in another location, and they could run it well, and they could take advantage of those resources that we had. We had obviously really good kit. We had, advanced features that we could give the customers. And that's essentially what public cloud is doing today. But it's really dependent on what the application is and what the customer is trying to achieve. And I think, like I say, typically the traditional applications are running really well on premise. They don't need all these fancy features necessarily from a public cloud perspective. And you'll look at this slide now. This is a very basic architecture. But something we do at Numata, is not just, we look at the entire environment is what I'm trying to say. So networking, making sure that that's optimized, making sure customers are maximizing the throughput in the network. And then this is a 3-tier architecture, so fine. So it's a couple of servers and some shared storage, and you can scale out easily in this environment. But like we've already discussed, the portfolio from Dell is extensive. So, if it's not a 3-tier architecture, you could move to a hyper-converged solution from Dell, and you can extend your on-premise environment to the public cloud very easily. And one of the big things that I've found that I continually see from Dell is they're making it easier and easier to deploy these solutions. They're end-to-end lifecycle management, fully integrated solutions, standardized, certified, one button, update all the firmware across the full stack. And that's what you want. You want customers to be able to get this stuff deployed and get up and running as quickly as possible, like a cloud-like experience. And if you look here on this slide, there's obviously the Microsoft customers that would maybe want to move towards the Azure type environment. So you've got Azure Stack, HCR, which we've actually sold a number of this year. And that's because we can manage the Hyper-V environment for our customers. But if a customer wants to actually have an Azure experience on-prem, they can use Hub, which is, basically, a watered down version, let me call it that, of Azure. And you can provide, you use the same interface essentially to provision services, but that directly connects to the cloud, and it's a complete OpEx model. So, there's those features that I'm, what I'm trying to say, like what Jennifer mentioned as well, that you're extending your on-premise environment, a hybrid environment. And then from a VMware perspective, very powerful features from VMware, VxRail, fully integrated system, once again, vSAN, SXT, all those fancy things that VMware do really well. And there's a lot of great VMware service providers in South Africa hosting in tier 4 data centers that you can just plug into, and extend your environment. Could be DR, but it also could be an active scenario. I don't have the capacity. I don't have, I'm running a new project and I want to provision a whole bunch of VMs, or I want to use containers, or whatever it might be. And a lot of the features that public cloud has, VMware also has from a, an automation perspective and all those good things. So, what I'm trying to get at is that, like I say, I think you can get the best of both worlds. And I think the VMware, not the VMware, the Dell EMC portfolio is really good. And, it just depends on the workload really in the application.
What strikes me, Kent, is, I've been in the IT industry for many, many, many years. And I guess in the beginning of when cloud started to become something that we were speaking about, it was almost a competitive scenario or a competition scenario. It was us and them, What I'm getting the sense here, and what I've seen is that Dell, in their design and in their strategy, is embracing the cloud, and it's not a competitive threat for them. What they've done, I think, is they've realized that they need to help customers to be able to operate in an environment that offers options: hybrid cloud, public cloud, private cloud. And so the Dell PowerEdge servers, and I think the Dell infrastructure, one of the key design tenets of that is to allow an on-premise solution or a physical solution to work with a cloud solution, which is amazing. It's not an either or. You want to have the ability to do both. What, in your opinion, Kent, are some of the pros and cons maybe of and help me to understand the private, the public, and the hybrid? What are the pros and cons of those three models?
Look, I think, if you go online, you can see a lot of people normally mention, normal things like about, the back-end infrastructure being fully managed by Microsoft. I mean, it's a world-class data centers. It's highly available. It's redundant. And that's a big factor. I think, in the previous slide I mentioned, when we set up a private cloud for the customers and we manage the DR and ultimately manage their production environment, they didn't have to worry about that anymore. So I think that is a big benefit. You don't have to worry about keeping the lights on at the end of the day. You can just focus on the software side, or the putting the solutions together from that perspective. So I think that's definitely a benefit, and that's also a benefit, I would say, from private cloud if you're using a private cloud service provider, because they take care of all of that for you as well, and you're just plugging in and utilizing the services that you need. But for me, I think the biggest factor with the public cloud is this access to extensive services and features and scale, and it's all at the click of a button. It's not really, but you know what I mean? It's all there for you to consume. And that's just something that I don't think you can necessarily do in an on-premise environment. I suppose you can get there, but it might be very expensive and you might not have the skill sets to do it. So that's why I say it's very dependent on the application or the business requirement and what you're trying to achieve. Like, let's use an example. Like, one of our customers, they're running a SAP environment with SQL backend. It's running on VMware, Dell EMC hardware. They're very happy. It's ultra reliable. We're actually doing some DR for them in the cloud or private cloud. But then, the business comes along and says, we want to develop this app for our customers, to manage the stuff that they sell remotely. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but that's going to be a perfect fit for public cloud. So whoever writes that application, whoever puts that application together, we typically do it in the public cloud for various reasons, because it's an internet-based application that you want multiple people to access. You want the reliability, the global reach. You want content delivery network. So when the people access the application, access it locally at the most optimized point in, on the internet or whatever it is. So and I think a lot of cloud native applications developed specifically to take advantage of public cloud are the best applications for that purpose. That makes sense. There's no doubt to take VMs today as they are and just lift and shift them into the public cloud just for the sake of doing that is not necessarily the answer. You'll typically find that it'll be more expensive. I think another thing that has always been a challenge, because you can just switch the stuff on, if you don't manage it properly and you don't have someone making sure that it should be running, you can get hit with ugly builds. Okay. If you also spec the solution incorrectly, it can burn you at the end of the day because you leave it run for a month and then after the month you get a nasty bill. So I think, that's like anything, you just need to manage it. And then I'd say, I think the hybrid option is definitely the best option for most customers. The reason being is I think you just land up by default being in a hybrid sort of scenario. If you've invested in infrastructure already, you're not just going to throw it out, So you would probably leverage that, use it as best you can, and see what makes sense to run in the public cloud. And a lot of times it is disaster recovery, because that's just, okay, let's, replicate into the cloud, and we only have to spin up the resources when we need them. But like I said, it all depends on the customer. I would also mention, that security is a big factor. Sometimes, you'll see on the internet people are saying, but public cloud's not as secure because it's a shared platform. But I don't necessarily agree with that, because the standards, the ISO standards, PCI standards, and all those things, they're aligned to all of that stuff out of the box. So, I tried to do that in my own private cloud platform. It was very, very challenging, very, very expensive. So if you're running an application that needs to be PCI compliant, to do that now on your own on a private data center is very tough. You can just go to the public cloud and you can check those boxes, if I can put it that way. But it is quite, it's quite interesting. I think the private cloud, like I mentioned on the right-hand side, I think if you did build out a completely isolated environment, you would need the skill sets. You would need, it could be expensive. You'd need to manage all of that yourself. But if you go to a private cloud provider, they can do a lot of that for you as well. And then you can benefit from, from the fact that they've already done that hard work behind the scenes. And once again, you can use it like a public cloud environment.
Sure. And Kent, I suppose that's where our value is, right? What, our objective is to engage with our customers and potential customers, spend a lot of time understanding the environment, and then be able to advise them based on our knowledge, based on the tools that we use, the Dell tools that we use, based on our knowledge of the solutions, based on our knowledge of the operating models. We, I think, are well positioned to be able to advise customers on options. And I like to think of, the first meeting is a whiteboard discussion, and really what we're doing there is we're throwing those options onto the board, we're scribbling, we're rubbing them out, we're assessing different ways to solve the problem with regards to infrastructure, enterprise infrastructure. And then, the really exciting bit is to work through that process to come up with a solution that we feel is the best solution, and to really get the buy-in from the customer that it is the best solution for them.
I think I also want to make a quick point as well. If you look at how public cloud, and one of the reasons why, people want to consume resources in that way is from a DevOps perspective, and developers, needing infrastructure to run workloads and applications and do testing and scale up and scale down. And in traditional enterprise solutions, that wasn't possible. If you needed more performance or more resources, you had to go to the IT guys and get a quote, and it takes you 2 to 4 weeks to get a server in and all that. I mean, those are one of the reasons why you had what they called shadow IT, where you had these guys internal to an organization just going directly to the public cloud and provisioning resources. So that is also, if you think about it, that's why the application to me is very, very important as to what it is that you're trying to do with an application and what is the business requirement. And I still think that the portfolio from Dell is so powerful that you can do a lot. You really can,
So thanks, Ken. This is a great opportunity maybe for us to bring in somebody who's been with Numata for many, many, many years, and our customers will know him and love him. And really, Quibus, if I can ask you to maybe just talk to us a bit about some of the special considerations that need to be kept in mind for customers when they're looking at moving to the cloud or when they're considering moving to the cloud. You just unmute yourself, Quibus.
Paul, thank you for that. Yes, so I think when a customer starts a journey on, considering even moving to the cloud, it's very important to sit down with the customer and do a needs analysis and also understand the motivation for wanting to move to the cloud. We found that like in smaller companies where, it's let's say it's a startup, for instance, a lot of the times they'll use off-the-shelf type of applications that have native cloud versions available. So it's much easier for clients like those to actually move to the cloud. They're a little bit more agile, but when you look at corporations, enterprises, it's not always as simple. They have legacy infrastructure that you need to consider. And like Kent mentioned as well, it's not always cheaper running it in the cloud. So we would need to look at the motivators and see, if it's driven by business strategy, for instance, we decentralizing offices, so we have remote workers coming on, and they need access to applications regardless of where we are situated. Or we might actually look at, getting rid of head offices completely, So from that perspective, yes, we can consider cloud. If it comes down to financials, if you want to move from from a CapEx to OpEx model, yes, there are motivators, but it could turn out more expensive, than actually getting infrastructure and looking at a rental model, for instance, but when you start looking at developers as well, the agility that it starts adding, to use platform as a service, for instance, or when you spin up virtual machines, you get spot instances, that is a much lower rate, but you don't get any reservation on those. So for instance, if Microsoft needs the capacity, they'll literally just spin down your servers. So there's a lot of benefits for people who are actually, experimenting or developing. But when you have workloads that are mature, it might make sense to actually just keep those on premise. And we'll take you through that entire exercise. Basically, we'll do Microsoft analysis based on their cloud adoption framework as well, to help you identify the motivators and look at what options are available. And I think in our industry specifically, that's where a lot of hybrid solutions will actually, come from as well, because we might find that it works better than just saying, okay, let's go full cloud all the way. But from a hybrid perspective, it definitely makes sense to consider cloud as well.
Yeah, that seems to be a consistent message that you don't have to make a decision. It's not an either or. The scenario is a hybrid cloud. There've been some, some incidents, I suppose, where organizations have suffered breaches when they're in public data centers, such as Azure. Are there security concerns that could be obstacles or roadblocks with regards to looking at a hybrid cloud scenario?
Yeah, Paul, so definitely there are some security concerns. But I mean, these concerns exist whether or not you're running on-premise infrastructure, private cloud, public cloud, they're all there. And it comes down to how you manage these risks. So for instance, if we look at your traditional infrastructure that you would have on-premise, you would still need to have your security in place, your firewalls, and the same counts for Azure. The moment you take a workload and you move it into Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, there are security configurations that you can put in place. You can still bring a virtual firewall appliance and put it down in front of your virtual machines and configure that. You get additional benefits as well. For instance, you get Microsoft Azure application proxy that you can put in front of your actual applications. You can look at front door. We can incorporate MFA. So there's a lot of options to look at where you can actually secure. And I think it speaks to point one as well, when it comes to actually managing the infrastructure. So if we say we want to move to the cloud, how will we be managing it? Because all of a sudden there would be more components to manage. So where on-premise infrastructure, you would have your infrastructure team. Now all of a sudden you need to invest in human resources, actually get training or appoint people to actually manage these solutions for you. But security, it's definitely something that you can tighten up very securely in the cloud as well.
Interesting. Thanks for that. So some customers who potentially can't, fully migrate to the cloud yet due to constraints, for example, budget constraints or architecture constraints. Are there options that are available to them to look at to move some of their services into the cloud? Would you have to move everything all of your services into the cloud, or are there other ways to approach that?
So I think for companies looking at, starting to adopt some of the cloud features, there are definitely options available. What we've seen is a lot of companies are actually looking at identity as a starting point. So you'll see I've shared a slide now where we can kind of look at what we would traditionally have. So on-premise, we might be running our Windows server with Active Directory, but we also get your cloud flavor where it's Azure Active Directory. So we can actually leverage that for applications that we are running internally as well. So we can say if we have an application that we're running on-premise, we can add the security of cloud to it by using it as an identity provider, or we're securing our Office 365, endpoint manager. So yes, we can start looking at moving those components in. And the nice thing is that we can actually bring in all our resources that we have. So it's not just our user accounts, it's our devices as well. We can fully synchronize that to the cloud, and that adds a layer of security as well, because now we can start setting up security policies that says, if I'm trying to access resources for my company through the internet, it needs to meet certain conditions. Because these devices are available in the cloud or synchronized with identity, you can say, okay, let's say, for instance, I want to access anything like SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft 365, emails. It actually needs to be a domain joined machine, not just Azure AD, but actually a corporate domain running on Active Directory. Sorry, and then we can layer MFA in front of that. So for those who don't know MFA, it's an additional layer of security that we'll add, and we can actually use a device to confirm our identity. It's usually something that or something that you have on you. So we can say, instead of just entering a username and password, we actually need to verify identity by notification that's sent to a mobile device that we approve, or code that we input, or it could actually be an actual key on a USB drive that we use to authenticate those services. So in some examples, what we've done is we've actually started to secure on-premise infrastructure using identity. So let's say, for instance, we have remote workers that need to access any infrastructure on premise. We can actually redirect authentication requests back to the cloud to enforce that layer of multi-factor authentication to it.
Okay. So essentially what we're doing there is we're using services that are in the cloud.
That's correct, yes.
And potentially removing some complexity from the on-premise infrastructure, I guess, and also then dedicating potentially that on-premise infrastructure to run the workloads that Jen spoke about, the workloads or the applications that the business is using. So it's taking away some elements of what would be running on-premise, running it in the cloud, and then being able to optimize the on-premise infrastructure to deliver the workloads.
That's correct. That's 100% correct. So one of the other things that we also currently do for our customers is we use a service called Azure Application Proxy. And the nice thing of this is where you would have a traditional VPN to connect back to your on-premise infrastructure, it's actually like a connection broker that we now deploy on your local infrastructure, which feeds back into Azure. And this service is then basically presenting your applications through a secure gateway with Microsoft. So let's say, for instance, you have staff that's accessing like web services, for instance, within the organization, but you don't want to publish these applications to the public internet. And traditionally, they would use a VPN to connect. We are actually now brokering this connection and publishing these applications to Azure, where you can actually sign in using multi-factor authentication. So that also brings us back to a single identity, essentially, because you can carry your identity wherever you go. So you'll have your normal on-premise identity still running on your local workloads, but you're leveraging it in the cloud and securing your on-premise applications using that.
So it's about providing convenience for users without sacrificing on security, I suppose.
And that's great.
Yeah.
It's basically just taking what's already there and simplifying it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that, Chris. Anything else that you wanted to add today?
I think that should be it for now. So the other option that I was looking at was site recovery as well. I think Kent covered a lot of it as well.
About that,
yeah. So what's nice about it is, however, that obviously we can just plug this in directly to whatever infrastructure we're running on site, be it VMware or Hyper-V. So even if you're running your Dell kit, regardless of the hypervisor that you're using, Azure's already compatible with actually just bringing those workloads in as well into Azure.
Okay. Great. Good. Thank you, Kobus. That was a really interesting insight, and really appreciate how you've helped us to kind of, I guess, understand a little bit more about the public cloud and specifically Azure, and how you would be able to interoperate the on-premise infrastructure on your Dell EMC equipment with the public cloud environment. And we almost at the end of our time. I'm wondering if there are any questions. I'm just going to ask, I guess, Kanya, if she's received any questions directly, or if anybody else has any questions, you can just pop them into the comments field, I think, and potentially, give us the opportunity to answer any questions that you might have. So I see a question here, which is quite an interesting one, and the question really talks to, I guess, the support of the Dell infrastructure, and the question is how does Numata handle the support of these servers and this infrastructure? I mean, I'll take that one because I've got a lot of experience, I guess, in this, and this is a key part of the configuration that we would do when we do the assessment. Dell's pro support for enterprise offering, in my opinion, is unsurpassed and is world class. And as a standard, we would, with all of our infrastructure solutions, include Dell Pro support for enterprise. And typically, when it's a mission critical system, we would include the 4-hour on-site support. And that would be our starting point. There we can rest easy. There we can be confident that should there be a hardware failure or support requirement from an infrastructure, from a hardware point of view, that we would be able to mobilize Dell's Pro support team to ensure that situation is resolved, and the customer isn't affected at all. We would also, I think, safe to say, Kent, that we would always build a fair amount of redundancy into our solutions, and things like the RAID configuration, redundant power supplies. Those are always key considerations when we put together an infrastructure solution. Anything to add to that, Kent, with regards to the warranty support?
Yeah, I think maybe also the proactive alerting and whatnot that's built into the solutions now as well. So it's pretty much automated. So, and then I think in Jen's presentation as well, she spoke about that. So, I mean, that's essential.
And that's really, I guess, Dell doing things to alert customers that something is going to go wrong in the future. So before it actually goes wrong, Dell's told you it's going to go wrong. An interesting one there from Janine. I don't know whether she's having a laugh, but what role does erratic power supply play in our decision with regards to where to place your IT infrastructure? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is there any thoughts of wisdom on how you can solve that problem, guys?
You're asking me?
Yeah, Kent.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, if I look at those customers I mentioned earlier, where they've still, some of them are still at server rooms, and some of them actually host in very good data centers. They own their own rack and their own equipment in there. the ones that have got server rooms, I mean, essentially, yeah, they've obviously got to make sure that they've got UPSs and generators and all those wonderful things that you need today. I think, it also depends on how much infrastructure they have on premise. So for the smaller customers, it's not really much of an issue, right? They've got what they need to keep it up and running for long enough to be safely shut down or until a Jenny kicks in. And the guys that are in proper data centers hosting there, essentially, yeah, they shouldn't have to worry. Otherwise, they should move it. They should move from in that data center to another better one. So, yeah.
And another question, I guess, that I suppose IT managers and infrastructure people would be asking themselves is, when's the best time to look at our infrastructure refresh? Is there an ideal time? What's the kicker that people should look out for to look at their infrastructure? Kent, your thoughts on that?
I suppose, I mean, the warranty expiring is definitely, something at that point where you're not going to have support anymore for the.
Sure.
But also aging. I mean, if the infrastructure is aging, if you do need to look at better performance in the environment, more capacity, and also just better solutions. I mean, these solutions are evolving all the time. So, like I said on my slide, you go from a 3-tier architecture to a hyperconverged. Hyperconverged is what everything, it's all there. It's all, I'm going to call it bundled, but, you don't have these separate pieces. They're all integrated. And that just makes it easier to work with. So I would say from my perspective, that's definitely, depending on what it is and the challenges you're having in your environment at the time, and how you can simplify IT.
Yeah. Simplify IT. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Kobus, go ahead.
Yeah, so to speak to that point, like obviously important to understand what the business goals would be moving forward. You might find a customer that's like rapidly growing and they're actually starting to outgrow the infrastructure. Or as Kent mentioned, you need to look at simplifying and maybe, lightening the footprints.
To that end, Yep. And to that end, the people who've joined us, you would have seen that we're offering an IT infrastructure assessment, and that would, in our view, be the first step. So we would come in and we would assess the environment that you have. We would have a look at all the key touch points, have a look at all the things that we've spoken about now, and then provide you with that roadmap. So if that's something that interests you, please do reach out to us. And we can make that available and we can work on that with you. It's something that is, it's a simple to deliver remotely. It can be remotely delivered, and it certainly helps us to get helps you to get a better understanding of your as-is environment. And then also we have the lucky draw, the giveaway. I'll ask our marketing team to communicate out today based on the people that have joined us, who the winner is of that lucky draw. So that communication will be published along with this recorded webinar on YouTube. So I think in closing, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Jennifer, Kobus, and Kent for your time this afternoon. Thanks to the people who've joined us. We really appreciate it. We hope you had value. We hope you saw value, and please reach out to us if there's anything that we can do to assist, or if you want to set up a one-on-one discussion with us, we'd be happy to arrange that. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and we hope to see you soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.